Alexis, so the team now finishes as runners-up in Group E. They move on to the round of 16. But how did they feel about the way they played?
Well, honestly, I would say frustration is probably the word that I would use to describe it, especially when we saw lots of the players and their demeanor after in the mixed zone. Kelly O'Hara, I mean, she put it plainly, as you just saw, and that's one way you can look at it, at the fact that job was done. They came here to advance to the next round, and that's exactly what happened. It doesn't matter if it's first or second. But once again, for the third game in a row, we're talking about the U.S. women's national team surviving in matches. That's the word that you used. And this is the USA. They don't survive in matches. They're not four-time world champions based on just surviving, and they just were not clinical enough in front of goal. Once again, to find them now in their first game where they weren't able to find the back of the net is really puzzling when you look at some of the names on there as well, and a lot of the players did echo those sentiments. They did say that something's just not clicking right there. They're gonna have to have some time to look it over and find out how they can remedy it as well, because coming up next is the knockout rounds, and we're looking at potentially Sweden as their next opponent, and they're not going to leave them with much room for error.
Yeah, it's just not the U.S. team we're used to seeing, right? And this is the first time the U.S. have won only one game in the Women's World Cup stage. So that's not good. And now they look ahead to, like you say, this matchup possibly against Sweden. Now, given the U.S.'s two recent performances, what's the outlook for that matchup?
Well, yeah, Sweden definitely have their last order of business to do when they play against Argentina. But if you want to go by the saying that you're only as good as your last game, Sweden put 5 past Italy in their last game. In their first game against South Africa, they did struggle somewhat to get that goal, but they got it in the end, and they managed to force a win. But then they came all guns blazing against Italy, and they did what the U.S. has needed to do, score multiple goals, just to remind yourselves that you can do it against lower-ranked opposition. Again, the USA were not able to do that again. So I would say they would go down into that match probably a bit low on confidence there, but if it's one opponent that the USA does know very well, it's Sweden. This is a historic rivalry in women's football. They know them very well through the years, and I think that they will be more than ready for this matchup, and they're more than ready for this challenge that they hinted at if it does come.
All right, you mentioned the history of these two. The U.S. finished second to Sweden in 2011, and more recently in the 2020 Olympics, the U.S. lost in that group stage. Again, that loss to Sweden. Alexis Nunes on SportsCenter with the latest from Auckland at the World Cup.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.